think we are live.
Okay, just let me check it. Everything is okay. Okay, welcome to the first session, Q&A session with Nir Kaufman. Nir is an amazing man, where we know each other for several years. Nir is one of the most hardworking and reliable people I know. My name is Darek Kalbachik, and I am your host today. Nir, welcome. Can you hear me?
Yeah, happy to be here. See you again. Yeah, I can hear it.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, please tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are.
Who I am? That's a big question. I'm a person. I was born in 1982, which is a long time ago, almost 40 years. So I'm kind of old. I had a lot of areas of interest, but the thing that I like to do the most when I'm not coding and dealing with technology is basically making music. So right here, as you see around me, my work, my home office is also my recording studio, where I find like a very nice relationship between coding and programming and making music. So that's my passion. Um, I don't know. Try to be more specific. Who am I? Just another,
Okay.
just another human being. Nothing special. Not an. You introduced me as an amazing man, which I thank you, but I'm not consider myself like any
Yeah, but
different
that's
from
true.
anyone else. I mean,
That's
yeah,
true. That's true.
but thank you.
Okay, so where do you work every day?
So I'm working in a company called 500 Tech, which is a company that is basically, we are a project company, but not the usual type of a project company. We are a group of front-end developers. We focused on the client side. That's my day job. I've been working with this company for, I think, almost 6 years. Started in Israel, in Tel Aviv, whereas the headquarters are still there. Currently, I'm in charge of our US branch in New York City. And my day-to-day job is basically writing a lot of code. I'm involved in a lot of projects focused on Angular, a little bit of other frameworks and tools. As a developer, architect, consultant, trainer, everything that related to it. Most of the day I'm coding. I'm staying close to the keyboard.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
The next question is a little bit regarding the situation we have now. Do you like work remotely?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is a lot of pros and cons. For me, it's get a little bit boring because I do like to be able to interact with other people. Um, if I like it, some days I think it's like a great thing, but there are some days that, let's say that if it's up to me, I will go back to the office. I think it's better. I think it's more healthy.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I feel the same, but yeah, that's how it works now.
Mm.
So please tell me, why do you like, uh, or what do you like about Angular most?
The thing that I most like about Angular is basically that Angular gives a lot of structure to large scale applications. Now I know it's like something that all of us have heard this before. Angular gives you structure. That's a nice thing to say. All of it's like one of the core. One of Angular PR is like Angular. It's a framework that gonna give you structure. But in reality, I can tell you that after working with Angular and other frameworks for several years, it's a big thing. It's a big thing. It's not just TypeScript. It's the fact that in Angular, everything is a TypeScript class. Everything is stateful. We can take a lot of design patterns, well-established design patterns. Like MVC style, MVVM style, C Sharp, Java state of mind. I think that by the end of the day, when I look at my projects along the years, the Angular project seems to be, it's not seems to be, it's a fact. I mean, it's much more organized and well constructed. And I mean, again, comparing to other frameworks, I must say that I don't have too much experience with Vue.js, which is kind of like the newest frameworks. So I believe that there are some other frameworks out there, like Ember, for example, and Vue that I just mentioned, that gives you the same correct the same like approach of organization. But if you ask me today, I mean, I'm not chasing about the next framework anymore. I like Angular because it makes sense to me. It's got pros and cons, but by the end of the day, the fact that I've got a well-defined structure, familiar design patterns that I can apply on it, and TypeScript altogether, I don't need anything else right now.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I love Angular since 101 or 0.3, maybe something like this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I know
I
what you're
think I
talking
think
about.
yeah, I think that dependency injection by the end of the day, bringing dependency injection to the client side, it's always like proven itself as at least for me, for my opinion. I think it's proven itself as a good thing eventually, which is kind of Angular unique. Other framework use it as well, but I think it's making a huge difference when you build large scale applications for sure.
Okay. I'm asking about Angular because next week we have a workshop with you, the advanced Angular view manipulation. Uh, why in your opinion the view manipulation is so important in everyday work?
Yeah, actually, I hope that you're gonna ask this question, because even if I haven't, even if we put my workshop aside, there is a good reason that I decided to focus and build a workshop which is dedicated just for view manipulation. And the reason for this is that I get a lot of questions from Angular developers, and I get this feeling that recently we have a lot of discussions about high level topics, a lot of discussions of state management, which again, it's very important, a lot of discussions of how you build a solid infrastructure, which again, it's very important. I looked at the amazing job that Manfred doing, explaining and teaching about the solid architecture and enterprise pattern. All of these are very, very important stuff. But not most of us, most of the Angular developers, not the tech leads, not the guys who involved in the infrastructure. Our day-to-day job is to build user interfaces. The API that we interact in our day-to-day job mostly is within building components and directives and implement complicated designs. Even if we were involved in building the infrastructure, most of the time when you establish a good infrastructure, you don't touch this code anymore, but you keep building new screens. Now, I talked with a lot of people in the community, and I've seen that because um, a lot of us in the community, a lot of the speakers, a lot of the content was around those high level concepts. A lot of people missed a very important feature API of Angular, which is how you manipulate the DOM, how do you manipulate the view the right way. A lot of people just it slipped away because we are talking about state management, which is important, but wait a second, there are some other stuff which are more, let's call it, practical. There is other API that we're using in every day, and we need to make sure that we fully understand how it works, because Angular got a very unique way to deal with how you build a view, how you build UI, how you build element in a way that is agnostic to the platform. So they've got several level of abstractions, and by really like getting deep into it, I call it like practical knowledge. It's learn how things work under the hood, but in a practical way. Learn some important stuff of how Angular is implemented, but in a way that we can actually use it. So I decided to dedicate it, not just this workshop, dedicate it like my future talks and content and workshops as well, on focusing on this important layer, the presentation layer of Angular, leaving aside the high level concept, leaving aside architecture and state management and how you build your project from the ground up. Hope it's
Okay.
yeah. I think
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Nir, let me share the screen with the workshop description so we can go through all these points and explain a little bit what you mean by them.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. There are some really nice bullet points there.
Yeah, yeah. So 1 second.
I would like to expand a little bit about it.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
I can see it. Yeah.
Let's 1 second. Okay. Now, so this is the workshop page.
Scroll down. This is me in a costume from NG Poland.
The costume is just perfect. Okay, so what do you learn? Let's start with the view hierarchy and view containers.
Can you zoom in a little bit, please?
Zoom in. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Thank you. So again, I just want to say we're looking at the bullet points of the workshop for a good reason, not just to let you know that there is a workshop, but to give you some sense of like what I mean when I'm talking about getting to know the viewer, the presentation there. So first of all, in Angular, there is the concept of an abstract class called a view, which represent which kind of similar to the concept of virtual DOM from other frameworks and libraries. And this view and this language, the view hierarchy, the view container, it's an API which is unique to Angular, and those are the building blocks of understanding how I create and manipulate UI elements on the screen. Now, note that I'm not using the terms DOM elements. I'm not using the terms HTML. I keep saying view as a building block because everything built on top of it. Those bullet points, those topics that I came up on this subject, on this workshop, and generally speaking on my talks, is recently I noticed that a lot of us, when we look at an Angular component, just because the template is written with inside of an HTML file, we use the wrong language. So the first bullet point here, the first topic that I think is very important is using the right terms and getting familiar with the building blocks, with those classes, the view and the view container, in this whole concept of view hierarchy as a let's call it as a fundamental knowledge that everything built on top of it. Right after it, the next bullet talking about presentation logic and rendering logic. Again, this is all about the language. I believe that if we want to get better with Angular, with a framework called Angular, we need to speak the right language. It's very important to have a conversation between us as developers and using the right terms. A lot of time we're using, I'm gonna refactor this HTML. Yeah, okay, we all know that we are building Angular right now for some kind of a web application. We all know that it's going to end up as HTML, like as DOM elements. But if we use the right terms, it's going to help us communicate better, implement stuff better, and choose the right API. So presentation logic and rendering logic in the Angular world, help us to understand where we should implement a specific type of business logic. Presentation logic goes into components, and presentation logic is all about how we present data, what is the layout, while rendering logic is how we manipulate the actual elements in order to achieve something, which is usually implemented inside of directive. So those 2 bullet points, again, putting aside the workshop, I highly encourage each one of you to really get into it and understand the concept of view and understand the difference between presentation logic and rendering logic, and understand how by speaking the right language and using the right terms, it helps us to communicate with each other as Angular developers and choose the right API and the right approach and the right pattern to implement something. The rest of the topics is built on top of it. So property modification via structural manipulation. We're speaking about rendering logic, and then again, we've got subcategories, because there's a huge difference when you modify the structure of your element, the structure of this view tree, and a different API for modifying existing elements properties. Each one of them got a dedicated interface provided by Angular that we should be familiar with. But again, it's all start by identify what's the difference between property and structure manipulation, and understand that this is part of rendering logic, and understand that it's got that everything is centered around the view. So everything is built, every topic is built on top of the other. Yeah, I mean, I'm going through the bullet points that I mentioned here, and I can tell you that basically once you completely understand this abstraction, approaching a very complicated UI features, let's call it like this, approaching a very complicated requirement and building highly dynamic UI elements with Angular become much easier. A lot of developers that I'm talking with, it's kind of like getting lost a little bit there. We've got the built-in directives. We've got sometimes some third-party components that we use. But once we get into a scenario when we need to implement something which is completely custom, so you know how it is. We check the docs. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. That's a problem that we're still struggling with in Angular. We try to learn from different blog posts and content out there, but I'm trying to focus on, again, understanding the basic building blocks and adopting the right language as an approach to really understand what's going on. I'm not gonna deal too much about Angular implementation details. That's another thing. Like, generally speaking, again, put the workshop aside. As a general approach, I believe that that I can easily spend 2 days, 3 days, 4 days with you guys in a workshop, in a meetup, on a conference, on a after party, whatever, and dive deeply into how Angular compilers works. Now, it's very interesting. I encourage everyone, if you got a time and you want to open your mind and, and learn from others, yeah, it's a really good thing to get into implementation details and actually see how Angular works. But on this kind of training that I'm doing recently, I'm trying to leave it alone, because it is interesting, but I don't think it's practical. It doesn't really matter for mastering the viewer of Angular. It's not absolutely necessary that you understand exactly how the IV compiler works. Very interesting, but it's not required. It is important that, first of all, you understand the API and how to work correctly with the API, treating the framework, the core framework itself, as the kind of a black box. So it's optional. I'm always encouraging give references to people to get into the source code. But for my future talks and training, I'm getting to get a little bit away from this. There is a lot of great content out there. There is this wonderful blog, Angular in Depth. You can get into the, you know, get into Angular source code deeply. I'm trying to get away from this and try to focus on, like I said, like practical knowledge, and focus this practical knowledge on the presentation layer, where we, most of the time, this is where we spend most of our time. Yeah, well, I talked a lot, as usual. too many words. I don't have any code open right now, so I'm just talking and talking and talking. But you know, Derek, and a lot of people who follow me knows that recently I'm trying to avoid slides as well. I'm trying like to talk and explain those concepts with code, whatever it's pseudocode or real Angular code, and try to get away from slides unless I really need to show some diagram or something like this. So right now I talked like for 10 minutes without showing any piece of code or slide or whatever. So I hope it made sense to you.
Yeah, but it makes sense. Exactly.
All right. Well,
Okay.
what else, Derek? Well, what do you want to know? That's an opportunity. No one listen. It's a private conversation. You can ask me whatever you want.
Yeah, it's a private
No
conversation.
one will never know.
Yeah, but I know that we have some special code for our today's attendees of this meeting.
Yeah. Well, if you just convinced that you want to spend this entire workshop with me, yeah, Derek we prepare a special discount code. How are we gonna share it?
We can share it on YouTube on the chat.
Can you paste it on the chat, please?
Yeah,
the code,
I will
my code.
Do it. Yeah, I will do it.
This workshop is part of this kind of new project that we adapt to the new situation, because usually we prefer to run this workshop in person. But I can promise you that although it's going to be an online workshop, you're going to get enough value out of this. And hopefully very soon, when things get better, we can come back and do those kinds of training in person. Yeah. Actually, if you're here and if you're watching this later, check out this channel, the NG Poland YouTube channel. I attended a meetup recently together with Manfred that I mentioned before. And I think it's very interesting and related to what I talked about right now, because I had the opportunity to talk about the presentation layer right after a Manfred, that talked about architecture and high-level concept. So I think it's very interesting to see both sides of being an Angular developer, the high level and those like day-to-day details all together. So check out the NG Poland YouTube channel. Everything is available there.
Okay.
I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Okay, so we have 20 minutes now, 25. So it is exactly as we plan. Nir, thank you so much for this great conversation. Mostly monologue, maybe. Yeah, but
well, you ask very big questions. So there's a lot of.
So but I really like it. So and we see very soon next week on the workshop. And so for today, and only for today, we have this special code is Nir 20 is 20% off. It works until tonight. So if you are convinced, you are very welcome. And Nir, one more time, thank you so much Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you very much,
yeah,
Derek. Yeah,
we-
and sorry, I
No,
there's
no,
a delay. Yeah, we've got an ocean between us. So
okay, yeah.
yeah, I just want to say again, thank you, Derek, and thank you for this session, and for everyone who's watching now or later. You are more than welcome to reach out to me on any topic related to Angular. You can get my emails and my details everywhere. I'm very open to questions, and I'm trying to help as much as I can. And if you've got specific questions regarding the workshop or something, some more information that you want to get because you considered joining me in this day, feel free to contact me directly, and I'll give you the technical information you need. All the logistics is being handled by NG Poland, but I can give you a lot of insight if you need some more technical information before you decide if you're going to join me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you to
Thanks.
everybody. Yeah, and we see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.